Since the birth of this country, we have stood united against the opposition. It started with the British during the American Revolution and moved to the other notable conflicts through the decades, including World Wars I and II, Korean War, Vietnam, and most recently, the global war on terror.
War is a very unpopular thing to be in, to start with. And then you have to let all of your personal feelings and attitudes go away because you're a warrior. And that's your job on this earth, is to win for the United States of America. I graduated in the upper 10% of my class, so I had a choice, bombers or fighters. So I chose fighters, which I always wanted to fly. Because the Tuskegee Airmen was my influence.
That's your
back in the
influence.
day, yes.
Yeah. How'd you like that airplane?
Well, I'll tell you, that was my number one airplane. Of all the aircraft I've ever flown, that was my number one. Beautiful, handled well, was a fast mover. And as long as you kept, as we call it, kept your smash up, you could do anything, beat anybody in the air.
Yeah.
But don't slow down. The worst missions that a fighter pilot can have are his first 10. If he can get past those first 10, he's good to go for the rest of his tour. And watch out for the last 10. In other words, there are other thoughts that come into play.
Yeah.
Boy, just think, I'm going home next week. You can't have those kinds of thoughts. Well, I'll say this. You don't really know the character and the quality of the people you're working with till you get into combat. And then you really know who they are. Even though some were very young, first lieutenants and so forth, they were solid citizens. You could count on everybody in my squadron, and I'm sure the other squadrons as well, to do what they were required to do. And they were all professional.
Despite the racial and political climate here in the States, we have united together and gone all over the world to defend injustice and inhumanity. We sent our segregated troops during World War I, only to then be desegregated in 1941. The military had to find a way for these men to work alongside of one another, and that we did.
My men were very unique. They came from the native lands of New Mexico. They came from the mountains of Utah. They came from Detroit, New York. They were just a microcosm of this country. They came from Texas, they came from Georgia, they came from, the banks of the Mississippi. And they were very strong, patriotic people. They were darn good. They were good at what they did.
We had to overlook our differences to fight a bigger enemy, the world and ourselves, and that came with Vietnam. It was a controversial war, and a war where many lives were lost, especially at Dak Tu and Hamburger Hill. Here were men of different skin colors who came together and banded as brothers to take out the enemy. It didn't matter what race you were, they all bled red.
He had one arm gone with a lung exposure. He had both legs gone with intestines on the litter. And he came in, he was as white as these umbrellas are. And I got up on him and I couldn't get a pulse. And I slammed down on his chest and I said, darn it all, we lost him. And he opened his eyes and said, I'm still alive. And I said, that's all you have to say, sweetheart. And we saved him.
As a country, we choose to stand on the moral standards and core beliefs of the Founding Fathers and to fight for freedom around the world. As a nation, in spite of our differences, we unite together for the greater good. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.